Welcome to the Dev Ready podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better technology. My name's Andrew Romeo, and my co-host Anthony Sapundas joins us today. Today we interviewed Will Strange. Will is from Sports Performance Tracking, where they're basically GPS tracking units for more your aspiring sports enthusiasts and sports teams. So your local football, for example, local basketball teams, etc., where they would track people running around a field and get some data back so that they can basically improve, but will it be at a training as well. So Will started out as a real estate agent, moved on from that into his own first business, which was 365 Underwear, which was a subscription-based underwear and socks delivery model. Will then started venturing into a product which is more of a passion of his, which was the sports performance tracking business. Over his time since 2014, Will's raised over $7.5 million in capital into that business, has now over 50,000 users across the globe in over 120 countries, and supporting over 3,000 teams. So significant success. Will talks about the growing of that team, working with partners, throughout that process, bringing on a technical founder that actually helped him build the software product, but also the realization that he had to build a hardware product, which is extremely challenging when you don't know how to build a hardware product. Will partnered with Planet Innovation to help him do that and deliver the hardware component of his business, and now is a growing and thriving business. Like everything and that we're seeing in the current landscape. Sports performance tracking has been impacted. What's going on with the global pandemic right now? His team has shrunk from 21 to 9. There's no one actually buying GPS units at this current point in time, and Will's had to make some significant shifts in terms of way he models his business to get him through this patch that we're going through in terms of no sport being played, which means no one's using sports from tracking right now. But with this great product, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And once we move beyond this, we will continue to grow into that. So Will, just to give you a bit of background on Will, he's a multifaceted entrepreneur. He's been named in Deloitte's Fastest 500, and yeah, got a really good sales acumen, but also a very creative mind in terms of how we went about beginning this business. So enjoy the podcast. There's plenty of content that you'll get out of this and some really good insights. Will, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. Look forward to chatting.
And Will's coming from his car today, so we're all locked away. As we all know, we're in the middle of the coronavirus outbreak, and things are a little bit more difficult. So nothing's coming from our studio at the moment. Anthony and I are at home, and Will's sitting in his car. So hopefully the audio is okay, and it all comes out all right from here. Now, Will, tell us a bit about your background and who you are, and where you sort of come from in your career.
Yeah, so I suppose, understanding, the nucleus of my career comes from understanding the nucleus of me. And I'm a pretty competitive person, grew up playing lots of different sports, loved sports, and ultimately saw myself leaving school at the age of 18 and,
Uh-huh.
looking for something to really, whet the appetite of that competitiveness. And for me, I'm sort of naturally a salesperson. I like talking. Some people don't like listening, but that's fine. I enjoy it still.
Love it.
But ultimately wanted to look for a career that really gave my personality and my drive to succeed a go. And early on, that was in real estate. So
Uh-huh.
at the sort of pimply-faced age of 18, was running around Melbourne's west, in sort of Truganina, Sunshine, these
Nice.
wonderful places,
Uh-huh.
trying to sell commercial and industrial property,
Mm-hmm.
and lease it to businesses.
Okay.
And that was really the start of my career. And ultimately from there, worked with a bunch of clients, ended up moving over to the property development side of things with a
Mm-hmm.
client of mine that I had from very early. And then at sort of 24, 25, realized, if I'm going to make anything of myself, I've got to push myself and I've got to work for myself and I've got to learn from everyone, and really try and create a career that way and create a career that I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
um, to sort of strive for.
Get it.
And so jumped into running my own business, which was actually an underwear business in a company called 365 Underwear, which was a subscription underwear business off the back of the subscription boom and the subscription product boom.
That started, what,
Um,
2013 from what I've seen. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
how
yeah,
did you get
definitely
into
started
underwear
that.
business? What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, look, people ask, how did you get into businesses? And I look at it and go, I got into a subscription underwear business for men and sports, two things that
Yes.
are probably don't necessarily go hand in hand. Um, but ultimately, for me, it was a time in my life where I was building a product for myself. I just moved out of home.
Uh-huh.
I'd never realised how expensive underwear were. I'd never realised, the frustration of jumping into your underwear drawer and finding holes in your undies, and you just haven't replaced it. It just becomes
Your mum doesn't do
a
it anymore, does she?
exactly.
Yeah.
So not only are you paying $100 for three or four pairs of little bits of fabric,
Yes.
but on top of that, you just forget to do it. You go to the
Mm.
shops, you do other things, you do other necessity shopping,
Mhm.
and that's just forgotten about.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
more
for
like a
me,
utility.
Yes.
yeah, well, it's a necessity. I assume for most,
Mhm. For
but
most, yeah.
yeah. People do very different things,
Each to
but
their own. Yes.
exactly. We were looking at targeting sort of the 80% of the male population, but
Uh-huh.
funnily enough, the buyers were still the females that wanted a job off their list.
Interesting. Okay. So that was
Okay.
subscription model. So it basically gets delivered to your doorstep.
Correct. So it was 365. The premise of that was every day of the
Mhm.
year you need to wear underwear,
Yes.
and the three being written out was every 3 months for $30. So you
Okay.
got three pairs
Mhm.
of undies, three pairs of socks for $30
Mhm.
every 3 months,
Mhm.
365 days of the year.
All right. Perfect.
Okay.
Now, you've obviously exited out of the business. What did you learn from that business? So you were in that for about 3 years. What were some of the key takeaways?
Yeah, look, that was my first real business. I
Mhm.
had fun. I sort of had funny little businesses when I was in year 10, 11, 12 at
Yeah.
school, where I was running my own little sort of locker room canteen, selling soft drinks and other
Mhm.
things. But that was the real learning curve of, all right, how do you build websites? How do you communicate to people in different stakeholders? So,
Yes.
being non-technical, how do I speak to a web developer, get my point across, figure out what I want, but also
Mhm.
engage them to teach me what I should be asking and learning on the go. So for me, we built a really strong website, and
Mhm.
that was off the back of getting some exposure through Shark Tank.
Oh, Shark Tank, the
And
actual. That's Channel
yeah,
10, I think it was, from what I recall.
Channel 10.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shark Tank. So
correct. So
you were on Shark Tank. Nice. Yeah.
I was a big
Uh-huh.
Shark Tank buff of the US and Mark Cuban fan and those
Yep, yep, yep.
types, and
Mhm.
was fortunate enough to get onto their TV show here in Australia, and off the
Interesting.
back of that,
Mhm.
there was 600,000 or 700,000 people watching, and we had
Yes.
sort of 15,000 people hit our website. So we had to build
Oh,
something
wow. Okay.
pretty strong
Yep.
architecturally
Did you end up
Mm-hmm.
getting
to not
investment
go
there?
down. So we did.
Okay, nice. Who
Um,
did you end up working with?
well, so we worked with Naomi and Janine. So Naomi Simpson from Red Balloon
Yeah,
and
wow.
Janine Ellis from Boost,
Yeah,
and all the
huge.
many companies she
Yeah,
owns.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
But prior to completing the deal, what
Mhm.
people don't really know about Shark Tank is you do the deal on the episode, you do the deal on the show, and then basically the DD starts, and then
Yes.
the ultimately the negotiation doesn't start, but certainly
Mhm.
uncovering a whole bunch of things about both parties.
Okay.
The investor
Yes.
as well as the investee.
Mhm.
But for us, we went through that process, and whilst that was happening, one of the big things that we found was there was more interest in SPT from the investors, and they started talking about that. So I ended
From
up
Naomi. Yeah.
from some of the other sharks as
Oh,
well. So
okay.
some of the things that
Okay.
what wasn't
Mhm.
aired on the
Yes.
episode
Uh-huh.
was that they actually tried to invest in both companies. They then tried to invest in SPT. Then they tried to
Mhm.
take a chunk of my next 5 years. So
Interesting.
they
Okay.
said, any of your revenues for the next 5 years, we'll give you this money, but we
Mhm.
get anything that you build.
Mm.
So there's, you're in the tank for an hour and a half, I
Mhm.
think, and they show 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
So there's a
but
bit
Very
going
low
on.
cut.
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But on the back of that, you go through a DD, you go through a negotiation, and it came very clear to me, which was about a 4 or 5 month process,
Uh-huh.
was that I wanted to transition personally into the
Mhm.
sports side of my businesses
Understand.
rather than the male underwear side.
All
So
right.
that was a choice I made.
Okay, so what did you do with the male underwear business?
So I actually sold it to
Mhm.
funnily enough, I put it on a person came to me off the back of the episode and said, look, we've had a lot of success selling businesses after they get this great exposure.
Yes.
Would you look at selling? And, initially I was like, oh, well, I'm always interested in a deal. So just tell me what you think. And we got off the back of that, he went out and spoke to a couple of parties and ultimately someone said, yeah, they'd definitely like to take it.
Nice.
They then took over and he was quite a well-known, well, not a well-known, but quite a successful entrepreneur in himself. He bought it and then actually had a really big success in one of his businesses.
Yes.
And moved the business again, and since then it's actually closed down. So it was certainly sad to see it close down at an end goal, but even going through that sale process was very interesting, and that was certainly a learning curve as well.
So what was it like selling a business? So some people out there haven't probably done this before. What were some of the things that you learned through that process?
It's bittersweet. The sweet side is obviously the outcome, the financial rewards. The other side is it does feel like your baby. Any business you start from scratch, you start from nothing.
Yes.
You know everything about it. It is an arm, it is a leg. It's it's another limb on your body. But going through the process, learning what people think and how people think differently about what they're trying to buy, what they're looking for, really makes you target how you build businesses in the future.
Get it.
Whether that's simple processes, everything documented. When you're going through a DD, the last thing you want to do is spend the whole time in DD, documenting your processes, and going through them, building it.
Yes. Due diligence. For anyone out there who doesn't know what DD is, but I think it's having that structure there in play and understanding what people are looking for when buying a business is pivotal. You mentioned a lot about structures and your processes documented, some key things that a lot of businesses just don't do.
I think it's like anything else, and I probably relate it to something that I spend a lot of time on now, which is the sales side of sports performance tracking. You build your processes that anyone can run it, and you basically build it so you don't need to be there. That's success in this sort of entrepreneurial life. And so if you can build that, whether it be your sales side of things using Salesforce and documenting every call, every email, all in one place. So if a salesperson leaves, you replace them with the next person, and they pick up everything that they had. They know where the conversations were. If you can do that with the business, you can then sell it for a lot more, because someone buying it goes, this thing's set up. I'm not going to have to spend my first 6 months figuring out what I'm doing. I can just start doing.
Yes, correct.
And a lot of people think that being an entrepreneur, a lot of the time you can be organized. You don't have the chance, but you've got to make the chance. And I think that's the difference of a good outcome and a bad outcome. It is how well built that process is, and that's what I learned from the sale of the 365 underwear business.
Yeah, I think it's a really good.
Yep. I was going to say, probably help you just be more efficient in the business itself.
Whether
there's systems or procedures, if they're defined, then you can do better at what you're meant to do.
And delivering better outcomes for the business and generating more revenue, more profit for the business means it's easy to sell. And if anyone can take that and manage that, then obviously it is a sellable business. It's not on you.
Yeah, and saying there's a lack of time is potentially because you don't have those things in place either.
Correct.
You can be spending too much time on the things that are not high value enough. The processes would fix them for you.
Time is the one constant that we're never going to get more of. So if you can build out ways to use your time better, manage your time, manage your people, all that sort of stuff, that's where the winnings happened. Unfortunately, the flip side of that is, when you don't have much time, things become unorganized. Then you get less time and less time and less time. It becomes even harder. Then you're too far down the track and you're just like, I can't be bothered.
And you're on that hamster wheel that never ends, basically. Yeah. All right, so that's some interesting background there. Now let's dive into what sports performance tracking is. So you're basically looking at sports performance tracking, and what were you sort of playing in this area while you're working on the underwear 365 underwear business? How were you doing that, and how were you managing both?
Yeah, so it was very much the traditional story of working in a garage, the family home, in areas where there was no phone reception. These types of things. So a lot of the time, whilst I was waiting for our products and our samples and things like that to come back from China, I was playing local Aussie rules football down in Melbourne.
Who'd you play for?
I played for Old Scotch, so it's just a local boys football team in.
Yep.
Then it was it still is in Premier grade in the BAFA.
Yeah, that's a reasonable level.
Yeah, no, we certainly had some very good players. I wasn't one of them, but were very high quality. Sort of now either AFL superstars or playing decent roles at clubs.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, certainly a great place to play for me, and it was certainly a passion that I had. And so whilst I was playing, I was had another thought come to mind, and waiting for the underwear samples to come in from China, and I've dabbled in technology. Always been a bit of the I like the new gadgets. I wouldn't ever have an iPhone. I'd want a Pixel or whatever it is. I want the new stuff.
Just a new thing.
Yeah. So. From my perspective, I looked at it and said, all right, how do I mesh these two things while I have a little bit of time? And ultimately from there, what I figured out was, playing, if you're running around, and this is the nucleus of how SPT started, is if you're running around the town, you're running around the bay, whatever you're doing, you're tracking yourself, be it from your phone or, a Fitbit or a Garmin or a Sunto or whatever.
Yes.
But the second you walked into team sports, the second you played, Aussie rules, soccer, hockey, rugby, you basically don't know what you're doing. So you're training for something you don't know what you're doing, which is really archaic, and a long way behind that sort of individual sports that we'd seen. So again, utilizing my time, I sort of figured out a way to mesh a passion, which was sports, with a business idea, which was the technology.
Which is perfect. That's the perfect sweet spot. If you're passionate about something, it's easier to actually drive that business, and you've been doing it for 6 years now. And just reading a little bit about what you've done. So you're in over... How many countries now are you actually in with sports performance tracking?
Yeah, we say 110 because it's sort of ever moving, but it's about 120 something now.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, some of those, from a credibility standpoint, some of those have between 3 and 5, 10 players in it, or 1 or 2 teams. But we know we've got more than 20 teams in around 50 countries. So
50 countries. At the bottom reading is about 30,000 users and 2,500 teams that you're actually supporting with your product. Yeah.
Again, it's an ever-moving beast. I think we just clicked over 50,000 the other day users, and
that's very different.
A bit over 3,000. a bit over 3,000 teams now. So
now your target market is more that the local sport, from what I gathered on our call last time. It was not the professional level. It was more the local sport. Is that still correct?
Yeah, very much so. We call it the aspiring. Putting boundaries on sub-elite and calling people sub-elite. Not a great marketing.
No, I don't think so.
Offend your customers.
Yes.
But we even see Division 1 high schools, Division 1 colleges and development academies, national teams that we've got, which we still classify as aspiring because they don't have the budgets and they don't have the sophistication that the elite teams do. So we definitely. We want to call it aspiring, and we think those teams are aspiring to be better.
Yeah, that's a good way to position it, because everyone, if they're looking to invest in tracking their players, they are aspiring to improve, clearly, because it's hard to, like you said, in team sport, it's difficult to track what each player's doing. The coach may be on the boundary line, and in some of those levels, there's one or two coaches potentially, and then you got the old water boy when he used to play local footy, and that's pretty much all you had running around. So yeah, you couldn't actually track what output some players are doing unless they. In footy, they got access to the ball a lot, and they just basically. But you didn't see the guys that were running the 5Ks, 10Ks in a game. You couldn't actually pick that up at all.
Yeah, you wouldn't have.
Yeah, no.
In AFL.
No, correct.
Well, sometimes it's the kid that looks laconic, or it's the player, male or female, that looks like they're not trying, but they actually are faster than most of the other players.
Yeah,
they just look laconic in their way, and we can identify that through our systems.
Yeah, very cool. So now, what? In terms of, this is clearly a tech business. Now, how did you go about starting that first device? Is this something that you talked to people in China, then when you're manufacturing the underwear, you got some contacts? What did you do to just first kick off the first prototype?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So initially, the first concept I had was for myself again. Yeah. Selfishly building a product that relates to me, makes it very easy to be the customer. it also gets me cheaper things like cheaper underwear. I
Yeah.
used to have heaps of them. Now I've run out of them all. And at that point in time, I could have the latest and greatest technology and
Yes.
put it through the business.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, what I wanted to do was figure out a way that I could figure out how many kilometers and how what sort of speeds I was running at training,
Okay.
and then identify am I doing enough in training versus a game, etc.
Okay.
So all I needed was a GPS. Did I need to go build a new wheel? No, and I didn't. To be honest, I didn't ever really want to.
Okay.
And initially, what I actually did was I went to JB Hi-Fi and put in a bulk order online. Bought I think 20 Magellan GPS units off their online site. Got it sent to me. I chopped the wrist component off it because it was just probably what I called was one of the ugliest GPS units there was on the market.
Yes.
But quite accurate.
Okay.
So I thought, how do I repurpose this?
Interesting.
So I cut the wristbands off it. Got a vest, or if you're a Seinfeld fan, a man bra,
Manzia, yes.
a Manzia belt, and essentially started tracking my local footy team, strapping it to the back using an existing product.
Oh, I'm sure they appreciated putting those Manzias on.
Look, it's funny. It's funny. 5 years ago, it was a real masculinity challenge.
Yes.
Now it's quite well identified with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, LeBron James,
Yes.
Tim Cahill,
Everyone's
all
wearing
these guys wearing it. And people are like, hang on, these are kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it's funny to hear, even in the US, we saw that 12 months ago, where people are like, I'm not wearing that. Right? Whereas now they're like, I know what that is.
Yes. Yes.
So
There's
it's a funny
purpose for
change.
it. Yeah, get it.
Yeah.
How did those first trials go? So what was, obviously it was a bit of pushback in terms of wearing it, but obviously they clearly started wearing it and saw some results from it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the second they, you watch the change in people's trainings mentalities. The theory, or the scientific theory behind the placebo effect almost works with our system. Don't even turn the unit on, and you'll get increased performance because they think you're being watched.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the old adage of having a substitute teacher there. If people have a substitute teacher there, they don't learn and they don't listen in the same way. So if you can always have a coach there and they always feel like they're being tracked, they're never slacking off.
Get it.
But so the first
extra motivation.
Yeah, definitely. Or accountability is the key thing.
It's all about accountability.
It's accountability that puts their efforts into focus now.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't hide.
hide.
I think the Americans at CES, when we debuted it, they called it the slacker tracker because you can figure out who was slacking.
Especially at training, right? I think we've all been, I don't know, Anthony played soccer, I played a bit of local footy myself, but we've all been out those cold winter nights and just trying to get off the track as fast as possible. But yeah, in this scenario, you can't really hide if you're not training properly or putting a proper output out.
Yeah.
You'll certainly be found out. So the first trials went well.
Yep.
It was interesting to see some of the players start competing with each other every training and every game. And they'd come in and be like, I ran 14Ks. And someone would go, hang on, what? You ran 14Ks? Give it to me.
Yep.
They'd go out and wear it, and they'd run 14. They're like, I thought I'd only run 6 or 7.
Interesting.
So it changed the way our club trained. And then ultimately, a bunch of clubs we used to play against, other friends of mine playing in local country leagues, started going, hey, I want one. And I think it was within 4 months, I was selling more of the Magellan GPS units than Harvey Norman and JB Hi-Fi combined.
Wow. So you basically just repurposed the off-the-shelf product, cut off the wristband and slapped it in the back of a bra that you basically made from being affiliated with the underwear business, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what I did was I actually approached the company, which was a Sydney-based company. So they were owned by Navman, the world's biggest GPS company. And I approached them and said, can I get a better price? And they said, yeah, you can do this price. And I said, the other thing is I want approval to sell it for more. And they're like, well, we can't, we're not selling that many at this price. Why do you think you can sell it for more?
Yes.
And I said, that's fine. As long as you let me do it, I'll, let me have that issue. And they were selling for $299 at JB Hi-Fi, and we were selling for $475 direct.
Okay, because
now there
serving
were extra costs.
Yep.
Yeah, they were extra costs to us. And then they would just use an online portal, Strava, at the time.
Okay.
If they wanted to upload and compare as a team.
So you basically at that stage, you had the device, you had to connect it to your computer, upload the data, I would imagine, at that time. Is that how it ran?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So, or it had a little screen on it, so you could see it on the screen. And then if you wanted finer details, you'd upload it.
Very creative, Will.
And then you did it
Very
all
creative.
against the Strava platform for everyone to compare.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
And
was good enough. That was good enough at that stage, but you know, we identified pretty quickly. And I always say we because I always think my brand and myself are a team. So people always go, "Who was the we behind it?"
Yes.
And I always go, "Well, it's not really we; it's me and the brand."
Get it.
So when I say we, you know, what we figured out between the you know, all the things that were going on was after about 7 or 8 sessions, people would start going, "Yeah, you know, I get it. I get what I'm doing. It's good to hold me accountable, but I'm not that interested anymore."
Okay.
So they stopped comparing as much. You know, they'd still be like, "Shit, I ran 14 kilometers or, you know, 12 kilometers in a game. That's a K more than my PB or a K less than what I should be doing." Then they'd be interested. But if it was reasonably similar, they're like, "Oh, this is, you know, it's reasonably consistent." So that's when we identified, one, we needed a more accurate GPS.
Okay.
You know, those GPSs were built for mainly straight line movements, so cyclists, cars, these types of things. And it's a very different, I could get into the technology side of things that I've learnt over the time, but a very different technology than, you know, high speed lateral movements.
Interesting.
So playing sport, you know, one of the most fatiguing components of sport is the acceleration deceleration. So if I accelerated and decelerated quickly 100 times within the space of 400 meter run would be more fatiguing than a 5K run.
Yeah, at a slow pace, correct.
Exactly. So we realized, all right, we need to know more and we need to show more.
Okay.
And that's essentially where the business started. You know, at that point in time, it was a hustle. Then it became a business.
Yeah, you're reselling a different product. So now you came to the realization that we need our own hardware. We need to produce it. So that's what I'm imagining, or partner with someone that actually can produce what you actually needed, as well as maybe a backing on a platform that you could actually sync your data into. That's what I'm imagining this would have went to.
Analytics, insights, more finer grain control.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And it was, at that point in time, I didn't have the knowledge, I
Yes.
didn't have the clients, and I didn't have the money. So
What'd you do?
that was the fun part of trying to figure out how I make a business.
And over the time you've raised, if everyone that wants to know, $7.5 million in capital over 3 years for this business. Now, is that when this started? Clearly, that's a big amount of money. It is a hardware business and a tech business, and it needs a lot of capital to produce. But what was you've obviously sold, and like you said, it's a hustle business. So you've been reselling other people's products. You realised that you needed some better output, some better hardware, and better monitoring. What was your first step? Was it looking for investors, or was it looking for a partner? How did you approach it?
No, I didn't even think about investment at that stage.
Okay.
You know, that first step, so probably 18 months before we started getting capital investments from, you know, sophisticated investors in Melbourne.
Yes.
I needed to solve the problem of, you know, if someone came to me and said, "Oh, great, you got a business here," they go, "No, you're just a salesperson selling someone else's product. Why don't they just do it?" Or, you know, why can't I find someone else? So I'm like, all right, I've got no value. As a person, you know, the value is an idea. An idea is not worth nearly as much as an execution. So I knew that I had to go find someone to either build me a product, which gave me value. Suddenly it's my product.
Yes.
I had to go to a bank and fund that. And I also needed to then build the software behind it as well, which I didn't have.
Okay, wow.
So, and I couldn't do it myself.
So you had the two-prong approach. So we generally talked a lot of non-techs that go and just build some software, but basically you're in the approach of looking to jump in, build software, but also a hardware piece that you had no idea about, and couldn't actually do it. Complicates the whole process significantly. Yes.
Yeah. Look, I think the word naive comes to mind. You know, I internally thought, oh, it's GPS, you know, it's 20-year-old technology, it's plastics, it's not hard, PCBs, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, most people can do it.
Yes.
Yeah, look, it's certainly delivering a product that works consistently, that doesn't have issues, you know, that is affordable at all senses of that word. And to then be able to do that en masse is not an easy task. And And I'd certainly, again, that's probably one of the biggest learnings from SPT is the reason, or one of the key things that slowed us down in that first 2 years was building a hardware product. The software was easy. We could update that, change that. You could do everything live.
Yep.
But software compared to hardware,
yep.
it's a dream versus.
Yeah, most people can underestimate the complexity of software, but like hardware is at a different level.
Yes.
There's a lot more components involved. It's a different type of thinking, different type of programming as well.
And the other thing is you've invested in a piece of hardware. If you produce, just say, 100,000 units and they all fail, all your money's just gone down the drain. Whereas software, you can iterate and change. Like the hardware's done. Yeah. There's not much you can do after that.
Yeah, most people that are playing around with software think of how many times they've pushed code that had, one little bit that breaks even 10% of the time.
Yeah.
If you push hardware that does that, could be hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars worth of costs that you may not have in the bank.
Yeah, well.
Yeah,
okay, so
prototype, control, PCB boards, it's different level.
And that's not saying it's not doable. It's just it's a different QA process you go through.
Of course.
You don't test and run and put 1,000 units out in the market and then find out that 50% of them fail. And we've certainly been through that where we've put out 500-600 and we found out this fault only operated at certain temperatures in certain places.
Oh, wow.
But funnily enough, that happens around the world over the course of 12 months.
Yeah, of course.
But when we were testing it for that 6 months, it didn't occur.
Interesting.
And that slowed us down and set us back a little bit. And,
it's a different level of real world testing.
So you obviously needed the hardware first. How did you go about looking to build this hardware? What did you do? Who did you work with?
I think there's a good quote, is the harder you work, the luckier you get. I certainly have had my fair share of luck.
Yep.
Whether that's deserved or not deserved, that's in the eye of everyone else. But, I went and pitched my idea to 5 innovation houses. So that was companies building technology in all different spaces. I was just on my best friend, always will be my best friend, called Google.
Yes.
I just basically, everything I've learned is through listening, learning, reading, inquiring. If you've got any question, type it into Google. I guarantee you'll find an answer. Whether it's the right one, that's a different thing.
It's a starting point, though.
You get a lot of opinions too.
Yes.
Yeah. So, listen to what you want to listen to and listen to what you believe in. But I went out and pitched to a bunch of innovation houses. Off the back of that, I pitched to the banks. Off the back of that, I went on LinkedIn, found, and I'm a pretty sporty sort of person, and within my networks weren't too many software developers or network architects or whatever. So I went and found, and again, bit naive, but went and found the university that had the highest enter score to enter computer science degrees.
Interesting way to do it.
My assumption would mean, okay, that's got smart people. So I contacted the lecturer, one of the senior lecturers there, and said, do you have any first or second year uni students that you think would be good at this type of thing? He gave me a name of about 20 people.
That's a big list.
One of them, one of them I had a LinkedIn connection with.
Okay.
And that was a mutual connection. The rest I had no connections with at all. So I got a mutual friend to reach out, and we met up for coffee in Chapel Street. And I said, this is what I want to build. I'm willing to do this. A little bit of smoke and mirrors. I've got an innovation house that's doing it. I've got the bank that's backing me. You want in? I went to the bank and said, I've got an innovation house and I've got a software developer. You in? I went to the innovation house and said, I've got a software developer and a bank. You in?
Yes. Fake it before you make it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's the sales tactic of don't overstate your opinion, but certainly state your opinion overstated. So they all sort of jumped in, and again, I was pretty fortunate that the software developer I found, who I'm still friends with to this day, he's gone on to do other things. He's living over in New York at the moment, which
that's not
he certainly said was the worst.
No.
He moved from San Francisco to New York 3 months ago and said it was the worst decision he's ever made, and been in lockdown since he got there. Exactly.
We can't control what happens around us, only what happens in our own backyard. So we can't do anything about it. So
exactly. But he started, and I said, you've got 2 weeks to build this as a bit of a test. 2 days later, he rocked up at the co-sharing office that I was sort of renting and working out of. And gave me a prototype that was exactly what I asked for. So
you basically, and that's something really important here, a point that you just landed on, you gave him a little test project just to test the output. Some people can just jump way too far in and jump into a 12 month build, and all of a sudden 12 months later, they still haven't delivered anything. So yeah, it's a good little testing and something smart that you did there.
Well, I think, the key thing is he could have talked absolute gibberish to me,
Yes.
and told me used all wordings and, used all acronyms and things and gone, yeah. And I'd go, yeah, great. He sounds smart. He's doing computer science.
Yes.
I've got no idea what he's talking about.
Yep.
But, I was like, I don't really care about that language. What I care about is this output. Can you do this output for me?
Get it.
And
that's
can
all
you,
that matters, really.
upload a file? Yeah, exactly. Can you upload a file and can you show me information from it? Don't care about design. Don't care about this. And then he came back with not only what I'd asked for and a couple of other things. And for me, one of the strongest things I always look for in anyone that I work with and that works for me is inquisitiveness. Are they inquisitive to the point where they'll come up with interesting things or interesting thoughts, or even question what I'm saying, what I'm doing, with their own thoughts? Now, that might not be the outcome, but that shows that inquisitiveness that I think is key to being successful.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. We've raised this, and I shared one of Anthony's brilliant quotes the other day on just on LinkedIn out of a podcast, which was something along the lines of, don't quote me on it, but if you engage a yes developer, that's the best way to build shit software. So in reality, if you're looking at just people that say yes and just don't really care about the product, I think inquisitive is a great way to put it, because the more engaged they are with the product, the more interested they are in just to solve the problem, add value, and question what you're thinking. I think that adds a bit to their personality and how they're going to add value to you as well as to the product itself.
Question, use their thought process, and provide feedback, value, alternatives, other suggestions.
Yes.
Not just take what you say and deliver it. So by him providing you with that little prototype that delivered what you asked for, plus had some extra things and extra suggestions, shows that he's thought about the problem, he's uncovered what else could be done, given you extra feedback from a technology perspective, which you would have lacked at the time.
Yeah, and I think you look at, and I'm probably going to go into my second pop culture reference here. I've done Seinfeld, I get onto The Simpsons. You look at when Homer built that car. That's the yes developer. Oh, great! This would be cool for me, and this would be cool. This would be cool. And basically, there's no pushback. There's no suggestions. There's no why would you do that. There's no challenge. And you come up with a car, or you come up with a product that no one wants. There's a product that you think people want. You haven't asked someone. You haven't had those conversations. You haven't questioned everything you do, which I think good people do.
Yeah, definitely. So, and that's so you built this 2-week prototype, and in 2 days, so, or whatever, it was a test. So the next step.
Yeah, well, I had no idea if 2 weeks was the right number.
Yeah, so you plucked a number and just
get it.
Yeah. And that's the thing that if you're non-technical, you don't really know what things are going to take, and that 2 weeks might have been a 3-month project, and that could have been well blown over, and it might not have worked out that well. So there's a bit of luck there in saying, all right, I think it's 2 weeks. At least you got 2 days was better outcome than being a 2-month project, which you might not have understood at the time. So sometimes people jump in, they try and guesstimate, and it becomes a bit messy because they just don't understand what's actually required.
Yeah, I struggle to estimate, let alone someone who's not a tech person. And I've been doing this for 13 years.
I think the key thing is there a conversation.
Yes.
It's can you do it within this time? What can you do? All right, what are we giving up? If I need it done by this date, what am I giving up? What can't I get? What can you not do? Versus what can we achieve?
Yes.
And I think that conversation is incredibly important, because there's too many people that go, yeah, I'll do it for you. And then they come out and they've either done exactly what you asked, but not the other things that you assumed were in it.
Yes.
Or the alternative, they just haven't been able to complete it, and they said that was never achievable. It's like, well, I didn't know that.
Exactly. You weren't told at the time, were you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So I think those conversations are really, really important to understanding expectations and understanding outcomes.
So now you've got a software development process started. You've actually landed some investment from the banks, from the pitching house. Is that where you sort of were at this stage?
A bit more luck, but again, you work for it, you make it.
Yeah.
The Innovation House came to us after we pitched the idea and said, "Look, we think this is a really good idea.
Okay.
We want to back it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll build you this for free as long as we get equity in this."
Okay.
So-called company.
Who did you work with?
Planet Innovation. I work with them to this day, and I work
Yep.
with them as long as I'm building technology because I think they're fantastic.
Planet
They're great
Innovation.
people.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So they're global biotechnical developers doing some amazing stuff. Throughout Europe, but they're based here in Box Hill,
Okay. Nice.
in Melbourne. They've been named, and this was after our relationship, and certainly taking no credits for it because it was for other products.
Mm.
But I was fortunate to gain a bit of luck where they became, when I saw them, they were I think 15 or 20 people. They're now 300, 400.
Significant growth. Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, they've been named BRW's most innovative company, I think, 4 times. I always get it wrong. I think it's 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Either way, they've been named it because they are highly innovative, and
Yes.
the luck that we got with that they were interested, that they were developing, that they were making some cool stuff, and then that they knew how to do it all.
Yep.
And I kind of just sucked as much information out of them as I could.
Okay.
And as I said, I still work with them to this day. One of
Yes.
my directors at SPT is one of the co-founders of Planet Innovation.
Yeah. Nice.
And I speak to him on a weekly basis. So,
Yeah. Perfect. So that's
we throw up different ideas and different thoughts, whether it's about our business, their business, other people's businesses, other thoughts, and always learning different ways. And that's what a good business partner does.
So so from that experience, you actually found a partner who was able to deliver was it the software piece and the hardware piece? Where was that sort of at?
No, so they did the hardware.
Okay, nice.
So they built the hardware.
Yeah, okay.
They sourced it. They delivered it.
Yep.
And then on the back end, I was working with Andreas Lembropoulos,
Yes.
who built the software for us. So,
Okay.
it was, and again, I obviously didn't have the cash, and
Uh-huh.
and it's pretty hard to. It's easier to fake to people what you're doing. It's pretty hard to do that to a bank.
Yeah, because I look at books. Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and again, I was a 24-year-old, just moved out of home, had basically, pretty minimal to my name, what I'd sold 365 for, and some,
Yes.
4 or 5 years worth, or 4 years worth of savings as a real estate agent.
Yeah, nice.
Good, but not enough.
Not enough. Okay.
So from that perspective, I approached Andreas and said, "Look, would you take shares in this so-called company?" And he
Yes.
said yes.
Okay.
He was similar age. I think he was my age. He was originally from South Africa. Was living in Melbourne. He's like, "Look, I'm working. I'll do this on the side. Great, let's go."
Also became a co-founder in that business, or a shareholder in that business as well. And I imagine
Yeah.
obviously Planet Innovation also took some shareholding from the hardware side. So you really looked at,
Correct.
from the early outset, you were really clear that, all right, I can't deliver this on my own. And you went and found someone that you could work with to deliver the software, and then a hardware partner, which I think, that was, in reality, that's the most complex part of what you're doing, because, like you said, hardware is quite a challenging beast, and if you get that wrong, it can be the end of the business. And it's imperative that the hardware works, and it doesn't fail. Obviously, it can't be limited zero failure, but you want minimal failure as humanly possible. So, getting the right team and partners and on board, however you refer to them as, is pivotal to any success.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that both hardware and software are both difficult, but every component of
Yes.
startup world of innovation is difficult, and
Yes.
you really can't have many, if any, fail. It's like going into bushfire season. There's going to be bushfires. You just got to be ready to put them out at any time as quick as possible.
Yes.
And for us, the initial one that was difficult was the hardware,
Uh-huh.
but certainly, the finances, the people and culture, sales, they're all as difficult. They're just relative, skill sets that I was much more comfortable in a sales environment to teach people how to sell, to run those processes than I was in the technical land. So that was the biggest risk that I had to be more on top of.
And you've proven that already. You're already selling products that weren't yours and actually obviously generating some income out of it. So you've proven that you could actually sell this thing. It was
And
more
the
about...
concept
Yeah.
was proven.
Yes, concept was proven. How many people did you have? You mentioned at the start, was it like 20 clubs where you were using it? Was that right? Or something around there?
It was initially it was 20 units that I bought,
That's the
which
number.
got me the bulk buying price.
Yes.
But before we actually built our own product, I think it was about 360 units
So around
we
60
had out in the
units.
market.
Okay, so it's still a significant number. You're proving this concept, and it makes it really investable. So you basically prove this concept with your skill set, which is selling a product. You repurposed something that already existed, which is extremely innovative. A lot of people just get sort of stuck and say, I can't do this, it's too hard, I have to develop the hardware, I have to develop the software. But you thought of a different way, which is a little bit different than other people. And it's, if you want to draw this back, I think some people out there that have an idea and a concept, even if it's not just, if it's not hardware based, look at software you can reuse and repurpose, potentially get you that first few sales and actually prove your business model, which is what you were doing in the beginning, which is going to make it easier for you to be investable, for the banks to talk to you, for the investment house to actually talk to you. If you came with an idea, I think it's a little bit more challenging. You've proven a model and you used your skill set to do that. So I think there's a lot of learning in that, Will.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is MVP, or minimum viable product. Figure out what that needs to look like, and then get it out.
Yes.
And I can't remember. I think it's like Steve Jobs or someone like that references, if you're happy with your MVP, you launched it too late.
You launched it too late. Yeah, it's true.
So don't wait around to figure out if you're happy with it. You need to figure out if other people are happy with it.
Yep.
And the only way you're going to do that is by getting it out there and getting them to say, I hate this component. It's like, all right, good. I now know what I need to fix.
Yep. Yeah, and that's important. So you've got a focus point there, because I think we can get lost in our idea and our product, and we can be adding things, features, functions that users don't really care about. We just, in our mindset, believe that this is important. This is going to add more value to the product. But in reality, like anything, there's the 80-20 rule. 20% of your feature set's going to be used, 27% of your product's going to be used. So your MVP can be nice and tight, and it can still deliver the outcomes that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. I think the best way to learn is by learning with your customers, and you can fix those problems. But people generally, as you said, people don't use everything that they've all the capabilities of that technology. They'll just use what they want.
Yeah, they will, and they'll use what's important to them, and it might just be how far have I ran today on the track, and they might not care about anything else, but that's all that person cares about. The next person might care about how many sprints did I do. Everyone's got a different a need, a different want, a different desire, and it's when you're trying to service everybody at the start, it's difficult. So you're just tapping on part of the market is a great place to start from an MVP perspective.
Yeah, well, I think the best way to put it is, even LeBron James, not everyone loves LeBron James.
Yep.
So if he can't make everyone happy, who the hell can? So stop trying.
And yeah, that's the reality of it. No one can ever make everyone happy. If you try to, you don't make anyone happy. That's generally what happens. So, Will, how you've been doing this for 6 years now? So how big's your team? You're in 50,000 users, 3,000 teams plus. You mentioned. How big's your team? What does it look like?
Yeah, look, I think it's a very different answer to what it was 2 months ago.
Okay.
Obviously, we're in an industry that's probably one of the major affected industries globally. So you've got obviously travel and travel, retail, hospitality, and sports. Yeah, because there is no one playing sports around the globe at the moment.
No.
So our team 2 months ago was 21 people.
Okay.
So 5 of them over in the USA, out of Chicago and Los Angeles.
Yes.
Now we've reduced back to 9.
Okay, so significant impact.
That's on a temporary. Yeah, on a temporary basis. With one thing during these things is you've got to make sure that you've got enough cash to withstand it.
Yes.
So you've got to make really hard calls really early. It's like if you put it into more pop culture, if you put it into an F1 racing sort of terminology, the second you see the bend, you've got to put the brakes on as hard as you can. The second you see the straight down the other side of the bend, then that's when you start accelerating it. So for us, we've had to put the brakes on because we realise that there's nothing that we can do to change this.
Exactly.
And we can only control the controllables. And then once we see that, sport's going back, we'll go really hard again. And hopefully we've got enough resources and everything to get through.
To move through.
And come out the other side trying to get up to 300Ks again.
I think the issue is, are you a subscription model? How does your business model work? So you've obviously got the hardware, which is a purchase, but is your software a subscription model, monthly fee? How's your business model work?
Yeah, so I mean, we'd love it to be more subscription. So at the moment, where 90% of our customers are capital sales.
Okay.
So they'll buy, say, $300 up front.
Yes.
They own the GPS. But then in our software, we have premium features, upgraded features. We run a premium offering.
Okay.
Where if you buy the unit, you can use the free offering.
Yes.
But if you want extra features, you want the premium insights, you want different capabilities, you'll upgrade to our virtual sports scientist.
Okay.
Which is a subscription, which is about 10% of our
revenue
income.
And that would that be, you're seeing a hit on that right now, that income stream? Obviously sales are completely dropped off, I would imagine, in your current state of affair.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why we've had to reduce staffing numbers and reduce our overhead costs and our OPEX is because, even clubs with subscriptions are putting them on pause or cancelling them or delaying them. And we're not going to put customers and people that make our business in a position where, they can't afford it or they get annoyed at us because that hurts us in a longer term fashion than
of course
the 3 to 6 to 9 month period that this does.
The last thing you want to do is kill your brand in this current position and market.
100%. So we've got to come out of it alive and in better shape.
Yes.
And that means we're going to have to take that financial hit. But for us, we've actually seen more people go to a capital sales model in this last sort of 2 months, last month, because they just want to clear that money. They've got that money in their budget or that's in their bank account and they're just going to spend it rather than guarantee that they're going to pay for it for 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
All right. So it's tough times for a lot of people out there. Sport's been hit significantly. No one's playing. So that's, a difficult time. Let's hope it's not too long and you can see yourself through it. So all the best on that front. A lot of businesses out there won't come back from this, and it's quite unfortunate as to what's going on. There's a lot of support out there, but not everyone will get through this. So if you weren't set up to begin with, it's going to be quite challenging for a number of businesses. Travel, tourism are big hits. Clearly, that's all diminished away, and but from on a positive note, there's opportunity in the marketplace to reset, rethink, maybe really look at business models and how you've been approaching things in the past and how you can move forward beyond this point and help your customers in the long run.
Yeah, I think any major change you go through creates opportunity.
It does.
This is one of the largest major changes in the global macro environment that probably happened in the last 60, 70 years.
By all means, yes.
Yeah. And that's going to create more opportunity on the other side of it. It may take a while for that to be exposed.
Yes.
But it will be exposed. Yeah. And, I look at that as really exciting, whether that be changes of how people manage businesses. Are people going to go, hang on a minute, people are actually reasonably effective outside of the means. People are actually effective at home or people enjoy it more, or that's giving us the balance that technology was meant to create.
Interesting.
Was meant to create us to be more efficient. How does that change HR? How does that change company? How does that change culture?
Yes.
That's one component of it. What's the infrastructure that's going to be required? What other technologies are going to be needed? Homeschooling, could that become more prominent than what we're seeing at the moment? I don't know the answers to the questions, but I certainly know there's questions.
Yeah, there's definitely questions out there.
Things are definitely going to come through.
Yes.
Like you said, the big change, I think, will be the work from home.
So as people realise that their employees are capable of working from home, it's going to make a big shift in terms of do we need this big office that we're paying thousands of $1,000s a month for to just maintain our staff under one roof? And that's
a trust.
Yes.
That's a trust thing.
Is.
I'll put my hand up and any of my staff listening to this would know that I'm pretty open in saying I really struggled to have that remote, flexible working because I knew how to build a culture when everyone's there. I knew how to manage people when they're there. I don't know how to manage them when they're not there. This has given me the opportunity to learn and figure it out. I would say that it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
That's the best way to learn. And I wouldn't take the risk if I didn't have to.
Yes.
At the moment, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, there's
so
no
I've got
choice.
to learn.
Exactly, and I think we're all in that boat. We've got a team of 8, 9 guys in Melbourne, and also an offshore team, and we're managing them all remotely now, and it's actually working out better than I thought it could. So I'm in the same boat. Like, how do we manage that? I just thought that we needed to be in one place. Just setting parameters in and having the processes that already were there when we were in the office, and that still exists today, has just streamlined how we're actually managing that. So I think having the right preparation in play, even though we weren't prepared for this, has put us in a good position.
Yeah, we were home working anyway.
Partially, some people were,
Yeah.
but I think now it's converted. Everybody is, so that's changed the whole dynamic. I've never really liked working from home, but I've had to make that work. And we all learn and adjust when we have to.
Exactly.
Now,
I think it's going to be interesting, and for people out there that are looking at opportunities,
yes,
be it you're in one that was going well and it's going to fail, or it was failing and now it's going to go well.
yeah, it can happen
There's
that
going to
way.
be more. There's going to be more, or more opportunities. So just
This might give you
stay tuned.
the opportunity to try and pivot in some other markets or something.
It
You've got
can.
some more time to think about it now too.
Yeah, and just
More the home fitness, personal fitness potentially.
yes,
Yeah.
potentially. Now, Will,
Yeah.
just to wrap this sort of up, let's take a step back and just go back to Will of 2014, and just pretend you go to Will and say, Will, here's some things that I want you to take into the next 6 years of sports performance tracking. Here's some learnings, some understandings that I've got over the journey. What would you tell Will of 2014 about how to start this business? What mistakes to avoid, what traps to avoid, and where to put your focus?
Yeah, I mean, number one tip would say watch out for February 2020 and COVID.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
bit another pop culture reference, a
Yeah.
bit like Back to the Future.
Yes.
Probably give a gambling guide as well.
Yeah.
But no, going back to the serious nature of that,
Yeah.
certainly a really strong emphasis on building people's capabilities within your team.
Okay.
The more I can build up team members to be operating in either their best fashion or our best fashion, is going to give me more time back.
Yes.
I certainly think, building a plan and a reasonably flexible plan is really important.
Okay.
Because there's curveballs in nature, not only COVID-19, but everything that you go through.
Yes.
And I'd also, there's certainly components of me that say just because you're working long hours doesn't mean you're working efficiently.
I agree with that.
So, I don't think I don't think people should be built and are built to work, 24/7 or, 16 hours a day, six days a week. So figure out a way to do it more efficiently and better. Because if you're taking that long, you're not doing it right.
Yep.
So
Or you might need to be understaffed or underutilizing staff in different ways. Just rethink it.
There's also expectations. I mean, do you sit back and learn, from this life? What do you want to take out of it? You want as much balance as you can, and balance isn't a word that entrepreneurs like, and it's not a word that business owners, founders, CEOs, or even just highly driven people like.
Yes.
But you've just got to get used to it.
Yeah, okay. I find it a challenge myself in terms of balance. When I hone in and lock in on something, I put all my energy in that, and I find it difficult to just shift perspective and shift being from... And you have to learn. Becoming a dad has taught me that I need to learn and shift. That's dad time, and it's interesting in terms of balance and what that actually means.
Yeah, I think that's it's something that's you've only got to go through it to realize when you need it.
Correct.
But it's definitely, if I penned a letter to myself, there's a few things that I'd tell myself.
Yeah.
Again, as well as the Flemington races every weekend. what tips to go on, because that would also help.
Make it a little bit easier for
yourself. It'll be a lot easier, yes.
I'd probably still find a way to lose, to be honest.
Love it, Will. I think that's been great chat, Will, in terms of your experience and what it's been like setting up a business, sports performance tracking. Obviously, you're like everyone, in a very different business now. And I think being an entrepreneur, we realise that you do get hit. And there are ups and downs and lefts and rights, and this is just another one that we will get through as long as you batten down the hatches and push through that. And been some great learnings through this conversation. Will, how does everyone reach out, learn about sports performance tracking? What are some of the contact details? Just anyone wants to know a bit more about you and the business itself, and even the hardware.
Yeah, definitely. So I think business first, as always. sptgps.com.
Yep.
That'll route you to our local website to wherever you are. So, jump on there. You can see products. You can see everything about us. From a philosophical point of, as a businessman,
Yes.
Definitely LinkedIn is somewhere that I spend a fair bit of time, whether it's learning or whether it's, creating content or connecting with people. So certainly those two platforms. And, from from a helpful standpoint, people are always sharing really good content on there. And again, they might give you 5 points and only one of them is relative to you, but that 1 point you didn't have before or hadn't been connected the same way. So, I'm always chatting to people, but whether people I know or people I don't know through LinkedIn.
Yes. Okay. And we
as
met
well
on
as,
we met on
for the
LinkedIn.
websites.
I think we got your connection, reached out, and we're on a podcast as a result of LinkedIn. So it's quite a powerful tool if utilised in the right way, with the willingness to expand network and just to meet great people. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. This will be definitely shared out on LinkedIn, so we'll CC you in on LinkedIn so everyone can get access to your profile.
Yeah, fantastic. I really appreciate the time, Andrew and Anthony, and thanks for having me.
No, thanks,
problems.
Will.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, then. Stay safe.